Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. This time we're going to take a look at this graphic novel, Misty. But before we do that, I wanted to make a little correction. A couple of videos back, I was giving a shout out to some of the other YouTube channels that I like out there, and I gave you the wrong name for one of them. This was Pete Beard. I mistakenly called him Greg Beard. Pete Beard, who has a wonderful channel about the history of illustration. This is going back, over a century, and some really great videos on artists and illustration. And one I couldn't remember was I wanted to mention Time Travel Comics. I really like that channel too, and check it out if you don't know it. That's Time Travel Comics. Okay, now I want to talk about this graphic novel. Yeah, a couple months ago I did a video on Misty, who was the niece is by Trina Robbins, and she was the niece of Millie the model. Well, here's another one called Misty. Has absolutely nothing to do with Millie the model or Trina Robbins, but it is kind of unique because it's a very early graphic novel and is from before before that term was coined. And Misty is an adult, as it's written here, an adult fantasy in visuals. I mean, it's so big, it's oversized, so it's so big you can't see it. There it even says it. An adult fantasy in visuals. It's by James McQuade and Gil Porter, but he doesn't get the credit here. And it was produced by Lake Publishing. This is from 1972. My copy happens to be a 5th printing, and it's so it was probably printed later in 72 or 73. So it did very well enough in the on the bookshelves to require several reprintings. Now I found my copy, and this is actually the only copy of the graphic novel version like this that I have ever seen. Personally, I found it in a secondhand bookstore about 40 years or so ago. And it is quite literally a graphic novel, and it is adult in nature. It has a lot of nudity, a lot of sex, although the sex is not graphic. It does have nudity, so I'll avoid that. And it has some lovely artwork. And James McQuade's work, in many respects, especially his female figures, really remind me of Wally Wood. So I think Wally Wood probably played was a big influence in his artwork, or at least in his female figures. And McQuade has a wonderful sense of design. Many of the pages are so well designed. Personally, I don't know why they just called it Misty. That doesn't tell you anything. And when I was trying to do research for this, there is an introduction which is written by Gil Porter, and he was a co-writer with McQuade on this. But unfortunately, I can't find, and if I had the ability to dig deeper, I probably could. But just in my online search for some research for Jim McQuade, I can't find anything about him other than this book, or references to this book. Isn't that weird? And Jim McQuade, he was an advertising artist, and he was doing like book covers and brochures and ads. And when he and Gil Porter conceived the idea of the Misty graphic novel over some scotch at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, Gil Porter was a copywriter, and over months they corresponded, because one was on the East Coast, one was on the West Coast, using audio tapes. Froggy in my throat. To build up the storyline together. And while Jim McQuade was fulfilling a contract and contributing to some fanzines, when his contract was completed, he bought a Mustang. Yeah, he bought a Mustang, as one does. Of course, this is 72. And drove to Vegas to meet his co-creator. There they completed a draft of the story before heading on to the West Coast, LA. Then, working meticulously, he drew the pages of the graphic novel over a long period of time, and they got a publisher, which is, something that's unusual for this time period, 72, and something other than a standard regular comic book publisher would publish a graphic novel. So they must have seen the possibility of, and apparently justifiably so, since they've had many printings of it. And this graphic novel had several printings, and it was even broken up and printed and sold as a comic book series in the 80s. I think that was in Eros Comics, because I remember seeing them back in the 80s. I did not make the connection at the time, but otherwise, his dates and more information on McQuade I could not find. And this has some a lot of adult material in it. So just be warned. I'm intending to bypass the nudity, but some might pop up anyway. We're just going to take a look. It's too long. It's very long, and it's kind of rambling. A series of adventures. In many respects, kind of like Flash Gordon. See, now Misty, it takes place in the future. Misty lives in a city with a advanced technological society, and but it's kind of authoritarian, and things happen. She has to go on the run, and getting out of there, and then while she's on the run, it takes her all over the world, and she is in science fiction, spacey type stuff, and she is in mystical, magical stuff. At one point, she's in an underwater city with mermaid people, and like I said, in space. Barbarians with swords, all kinds, until it comes to a conclusion. And I won't tell you too much about that. So let's take a little look inside the pages of Misty. There. Let's see if that works. See, this is oversized. It's 9-inch by 12-inch, and it's a little more difficult to get the entire cover image in the viewfinder. And we'll take a little look right here at the first page. Is Misty. This is the very first page. It has some nudity, but you don't see anything. But this allows you to see the design. Of course, these are it's dancing. Actually, this is a wedding that we're witnessing, and those people dancing are the participants. And you see, McQuade used a duotone paper, some shading. He used, for those who don't know, duotone paper was a special kind of paper that you could buy, that came with some chemicals. You applied the chemicals, and it would, as you can see here, and that chemical would bring out depending on the chemical, various textures. Dot patterns, cross hatching and hatching, and various gray tones would come right out on the paper from the chemicals. There's some lovely artwork there. I'm just going to skip around because I'm not going to try to show you the pages. But here, I said, and as I said, very soon she's in leopard print suit, outfit, and chained up in a dungeon with a barbarian fellow. And they have an extended sex scene in here which is beautifully designed, but it has all that nudity that I really can't show. But it has sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 pages that is beautifully designed and rendered without being graphic. Then here we have those Misty and that barbarian fellow having to fight to the death in a ring, and just nicely told visually. This whole page here is silent until this is when he's supposed to kill her, and then all hell breaks loose because he's not going to. See what we got here. Oh, here we got some kaboom. They started a revolt. It's got a big kaboom, flames, and trying to escape. And here's another one that really makes me think of, all the female figures here, really makes me think of Wally Wood's work. And he did a lot of this kind of stuff with his fantasies and stuff. And there she still is. And in another part of the story here, looks like something gruesome with all these bodies. It's something referring to something that had been shown earlier on television screen. But they're robots. All this whole society or involving robots as actors, which kind of makes me think of Westworld. This is before Westworld, and this is some weird fantasy stuff here. Going down a slide. Some other stuff. Oh, this is beautiful. The beautiful way the water is rendered. All the detail, the muscles here, shells, and the interior of the cave, and it looks like a giant geodesic or a geode with the crystalline structures in the ceiling. And she has to go swim, and here's villains. You can clearly tell they're villains. Looks demonic, etc., etc., etc. Mixed with technology. She looks like right out of one of the horror comics at the time. And here we are with the mer people. some beautiful stuff. The detail, it worked really hard on the intricate details to make everything look just right. Here we get further on here, and some fantasy piratey stuff, and these people are capturing people and putting them in suspended animation. And here, I like this panel here because it shows all these. There's people who have been caught and collected and put in suspended animation, and there is Vampirella here on the extreme left. I don't know who the next two are. I think one of those is Little Annie Fanny. We have the Golden Age Black Cat right here. And here's Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. And more stuff. See, and she starts out kind of timid, but as time goes by, she becomes tougher. It has a little bit of nudity here, but it's a good opportunity to show the spacey stuff. Spacey stuff, which goes right into, which is biplanes. Yeah, of course it had to tear the paper. Again, beautifully rendered air battle with biplanes. They just jump like right out of World War I, just jumping from one thing to another. And this said they had so many other ideas that they wound up not using. See, and this really makes me think of Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers stuff. And then suddenly she's lost in the swamp, dressed like an Indian princess or something. And we're getting close to the end here. And almost there's the villain and the supercomputer and the like. And that barbarian who helped her out earlier, he's popped back up again. And so that's just a brief overview of Misty. And I have to wonder, so leave a comment below. Have you ever even heard of this graphic novel before? And as I said, I've never seen another copy. I have seen it available online, but I've never seen another copy anywhere, personally. And the closest I've seen was the comic book reprint from, as I said, from the 80s. I don't think I ever bought any of those, and at the time I never made the connection, even though I already had this copy. I never made the connection because this was tucked away in my collection somewhere. So I hope you enjoyed that. You gotta at least love the beautiful artwork and the wonderful visual storytelling, and all of that. It's kind of meanders, but it does have an overall plot. Some nice thrilling adventure. If you like Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers, the classic stuff, you should like this. So please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Have you, as I said, asked, have you seen this before? If so, where and when? Because you don't see it anymore. Did you get any of the comic book reprint from the 80s? Let me know. I like to get that kind of feedback. And that's what we've got. Thanks again for joining me. And remember, comics are art.